Martha Henderson's fingers went numb as she stared at the foreclosure notice. 5 days, $52. 42 years of memories about to vanish. Then the thunder came, not from the sky, from the road. 15 Hell's Angels emerged from the blizzard like ghosts made of leather and chrome. 15 men the world had taught her to fear. 15 pairs of eyes watching her through the frozen glass. Martha's hand found the lock. One twist and she'd be safe. One twist and they'd freeze to death in her parking lot. She thought of Bill, of everything he'd taught her about keeping the light on. She opened the door. By sunrise, 100 motorcycles would fill that parking lot, and Martha Henderson's life would never be the same. Subscribe now and comment your city. Let's see how far this story reaches. Martha slammed the register shut. $52, same as an hour ago, same as yesterday. She pulled the foreclosure notice from her apron and read it again. 5 days. The bank had given her 5 days to come up with 3 months of back payments, or Henderson's haven would belong to someone else. Bill, she said out loud, I failed you. The wind answered with a scream that rattled every window in the diner. Martha walked to booth 7 and pressed her palm against the cracked vinyl. Bill's booth. Every morning for 39 years, he'd sat right here with his coffee, watching the sunrise, making plans. We're going to expand the parking lot next spring, he used to say. Spring never came for Bill Henderson. His heart gave out 3 years ago, right next to the ice machine he'd been trying to fix. Martha found him with a wrench in his hand and that gentle smile still on his face. She kept the wrench in a drawer behind the counter. Couldn't bring herself to move it. The lights flickered overhead. Don't you dare, Martha warned them. Not tonight. They steadied, but she knew it was temporary. Everything was temporary now. The heating system groaned like a dying animal. The coffee pot had cracked that morning. The neon sign outside hadn't spelled Henderson's Haven in 6 years. Just Henderson's Haven. Bill always meant to fix it. Martha looked at the clock. 8:47. Time to close up, go home to an empty house, and figure out how to tell her daughter that 4 decades of family history were about to disappear. She reached for the light switch. That's when she heard it. A rumble, low and deep, cutting through the storm like a knife through flesh. Martha froze. Thunder, number, wrong rhythm. This sound had a heartbeat. She pressed her face against the window. Nothing but white. The blizzard had turned Highway 89 into a memory. Then the headlights appeared. 1, 2, 5, 10, 15. Moving in formation, cutting through snow that should have been impossible to navigate. Martha watched the shapes emerge like ghosts materializing from the void. Motorcycles, Harley-Davidsons by the sound of them. Big ones. The bikes pulled into her parking lot, engines thundering in unison. 15 machines, 15 riders. And on their backs, patches that made Martha's blood run cold. Hell's Angels, Thunder Valley. Chapter 10. Lord have mercy, she whispered. No. The lead rider dismounted first. He was enormous. 6'5" at least, with shoulders that could block a doorway and hands that looked like they'd broken things. Broken people, maybe. His beard was gray and wild, frosted white with ice. His leather jacket crackled when he moved, frozen stiff from hours in the storm. He looked directly at the window. Martha stepped back, her heart slamming against her ribs. She knew what Hell's Angels were. Everyone in Montana knew. The news called them outlaws, criminals, dangerous men who did dangerous things to people who crossed them. And 15 of them were walking toward her door. Martha's hand found the lock. One twist. That's all it would take. One twist and she'd be safe behind glass and steel. They'd see the closed sign, curse the storm, and move on to somewhere else. Somewhere that wasn't her problem. The lead rider reached the door. Martha's fingers tightened on the lock. Then she saw his leg. He was limping, trying to hide it but failing. Behind him, 2 riders were supporting a young man who could barely stand. Others were hunched against the wind, arms wrapped around themselves, moving with the desperate shuffle of people who'd been cold for far too long. They weren't predators hunting for prey. They were survivors looking for shelter. The big man raised his fist and knocked, 3 gentle taps that seemed impossible from hands that size. Martha closed her eyes. Bill, she whispered, what do I do? And somewhere in her memory, she heard his voice. This place is a lighthouse, Martha. We never turn away a soul in the storm. That's the whole point. She opened her eyes. She opened the door. Shrim. The cold hit her like a punch to the chest. The man filled the doorway, blocking the wind with his body. Up close, he looked even more intimidating. Scars on his knuckles, a nose that had been broken more than once, eyes that had seen the things Martha couldn't imagine. But his voice was soft. "Ma'am," he said, "I'm real sorry to bother you. I know it's late. I can see you're closed." "Then why are you knocking?" "Because we've got men in trouble." He gestured toward the parking lot. "We've been riding 6 hours in this mess. Got a young kid back there going hypothermic. If we don't get him warm soon..." He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't have to. Martha looked past him at the young man being half carried by 2 others. Even from here, she could see the blue tinge to his lips, the uncontrollable shaking. "How old is he?" 23, same age as her grandson. "Bring him inside," Martha said. "All of you, now." The big man didn't move. "Ma'am, you know who we are. I'm 72 years old and not blind. I can read those patches just fine. And you're still opening your door." Martha fixed him with a look that had stopped drunk truckers in their tracks. "Young man, I've been running this diner since Nixon was president. I've fed saints and sinners and everything in between. Never once asked for a resume. Now are you going to stand there asking stupid questions while that boy freezes to death? Or are you going to help me save his life?" For a long moment, nothing happened. Then the big man smiled. It transformed his entire face, turning him from terrifying to almost gentle. "Yes, ma'am," he said, "whatever you say." He turned and whistled sharply. "Brothers, get Danny inside, move." "Yeah." They came through the door like a leather-clad flood, 15 men, each one bigger than the last. They brought the smell of engine oil and frozen road with them, tracking snow across the linoleum that Martha had mopped just hours ago. She didn't care about the floor. "Put him here," she ordered, pointing at the booth nearest the heater. "Gently, don't jostle him." 2 riders lowered the young man onto the bench. Up close, he looked even worse. His skin was gray, his eyes were unfocused. His whole body shook like he was being electrocuted. "What's his name?" Martha asked. "Danny," the big man said. "Danny Reeves. He's a prospect. Been riding with us 3 months." "Danny," Martha snapped her fingers in front of his face. "Danny, look at me. Can you hear me?" "Cold," he managed. "This is so cold." "I know, sweetheart. I know, but I need you to stay with me. Okay, can you do that?" His eyes found hers, focused for just a moment. Yes, ma'am." "Good boy." Martha straightened and turned to face the wall of leather and muscle behind her. "You," she said, pointing at the biggest man she'd ever seen. He had to weigh 400 pounds with a bald head and arms like tree trunks. "What's your name?" "Grizzly," he rumbled. "Grizzly, I need every cushion from these booths piled right here. We need to get him off this cold vinyl." Grizzly moved immediately, ripping cushions from booths with hands that could have crushed skulls. "You." Martha pointed at a tattooed man with cold eyes. "Name's Blade. There's a storage room through that door. Blankets on the top shelf. Bring all of them." Blade went without a word. "You." She pointed at a wiry man with a silver beard. "Find me every towel in this place. Kitchen, bathroom, I don't care. Go." He went. Martha turned to the big man who'd knocked on her door. "And you, I need coffee. Strong. The machine's behind the counter. Think you can handle it?" "Yes, ma'am." "Then stop standing in there and handle it." He moved. They all moved. 15 Hells Angels following orders from a 72-year-old woman like she was their commanding officer. Martha worked on Danny for 20 minutes straight. She layered blankets around him, tucking them tight to trap body heat. She made him drink warm water, not hot, because she knew the shock could kill him faster than the cold. She talked to him constantly, keeping him focused, keeping him present. "Where are you from, Danny?" Montana. Billings." "Billings, I know Billings. My sister lived there 40 years ago. You know the old movie theater on Main Street?" Yeah, the Palace. That's the one. My sister worked there when she was your age. Sold popcorn and snuck us into movies for free." Martha adjusted his blankets. "You got a girl back in Billings, Danny?" His shaking was starting to slow. Yeah, Sarah. We're getting married in June." "June, that's a beautiful month for a wedding. My Bill and I got married in June. June 14th, 1981. Hottest day of the year, and I wore my mother's dress with long sleeves because I was too stubborn to alter it. Danny almost smiled. Sounds like Sarah. Stubborn? Yeah, real stubborn. Good. You need a stubborn woman, Danny. Stubborn women don't give up. Not on anything. Not on anyone. His color was coming back. The gray was fading, replaced by something closer to pink. Mrs. Henderson. Danny's voice was steadier now. Yes. Thank you. Martha patted his cheek. You're welcome, sweetheart. Now close your eyes and rest. You're safe here. The big man appeared at her elbow. He's going to make it, he said. Not a question. He's going to make it, Martha confirmed. Another hour in that cold and we'd be having a different conversation. But he's young, strong. He'll be fine. The man let out a breath. Something in his shoulders relaxed. I owe you, he said. You don't owe me anything. Ma'am, with respect, you're wrong. Martha finally allowed herself to stop. She straightened up, pressed a hand to her aching back, and really looked at the man in front of her. He was older than she'd first thought, mid-50s maybe. The gray in his beard wasn't just from ice. There were lines around his eyes that came from years, not weather. What's your name? She asked. Your real name. Jacob Walker. Most people call me Iron. Iron, like the metal, like the will. He almost smiled. That's what my mother used to say, anyway. Said I came out of the womb stubborn and never changed. Smart woman, your mother. She was. Past tense, heavy with loss. Martha understood that weight. She carried it herself. Well, Iron, she said. Your boys look hungry. I don't have much, but I've got soup on the stove and bread in the warmer. It's not fancy, but it's hot. Ma'am, we can pay. Did I ask for money? No, but then sit down and eat before I change my mind. Iron looked at her for a long moment. Something shifted in his expression, not surprise exactly, more like recognition, like he was seeing something he'd been looking for a long time. Yes, ma'am, he said quietly. Whatever you say. Martha fed them everything she had. The soup went first, then the bread, then the pie she'd baked 3 days ago, hoping for customers who never came. She made more coffee, then more again. She didn't count the cost, didn't think about the $52 in the register or the 5 days on the foreclosure notice. These men were hungry and she had food. It was that simple. Bill would have done the same thing. This pie, Grizzly said, his massive face full of wonder. This is the best pie I've ever eaten in my life. It's just apple pie. No, ma'am, this is not just apple pie. This is, he searched for the word, this is religion. A few of the other riders laughed. Even Blade, the tattooed one with the cold eyes, cracked something that might have been a smile. My grandmother's recipe, Martha said. She taught me when I was 6 years old. Said the secret was patience. You can't rush a good pie. You can't rush anything good, Iron said. He was sitting in booth 7, Bill's booth. Martha didn't ask him to move. That's what my husband used to say, she said instead. Bill was the most patient man I ever met. Took him 3 years to convince me to marry him. 3 years? I was stubborn. Hard to imagine. Martha almost smiled. We bought this place right after the wedding, 1981. We didn't have anything except each other and a crazy dream about building something that mattered. Looks like you succeeded. Martha glanced around the diner, at the cracked booths and flickering lights, at the broken jukebox and the sign that couldn't spell its own name. Does it? Iron followed her gaze. Yes, ma'am, he said. It does. Yeah. The storm raged outside, but inside the diner, something was shifting. The riders had spread out, filling booths and counter stools, but they'd left booth 7 for Iron. Martha noticed that. Some kind of respect, maybe. Some kind of hierarchy she didn't fully understand. A wiry man with silver beard approached her. Earlier, she'd sent him hunting for towels. Now he stood before her with an expression she couldn't read. Ma'am, I'm preacher. Preacher, you religious? Used to be. Pastor for 15 years before I found the club. Now I just keep the boys from doing anything too stupid. That sounds like a full-time job. You have no idea. He glanced toward the back of the diner, then back at her. Can I ask you something, Mrs. Henderson? You just did. Preacher smiled. Fair enough. Can I ask you something else? Go ahead. That notice in your apron pocket, the one from the bank, how bad is it? Martha's hand moved instinctively to cover the paper. That's none of your concern. Maybe not, but I've been watching you for the past hour. You're feeding 15 hungry men like it's nothing, but your hands shake every time you look at that clock. Like you're counting down to something. Martha said nothing. 5 days, Preacher said quietly. That's what foreclosure notices usually give. 5 days to come up with money you don't have. How do you know that? Because I've been there, before the club, before everything. I lost my church to the bank. Watch them change the locks on a building my congregation built with their own hands. He paused. I know what it looks like when someone's losing everything. Martha felt something crack inside her. Something she'd been holding together with pure will and stubbornness. 42 years, she whispered. Bill and I built this place from nothing. We raised 3 children in that house across the road. We fed thousands of travelers, helped hundreds of stranded motorists. And now, down, she couldn't finish. Preacher reached out and put a hand on her shoulder. And now, he said, you're feeding 15 more, even when you've got nothing left. He squeezed gently. Mrs. Henderson, I've met a lot of people in my life, saints and sinners, just like you said, but I've never met anyone quite like you. Iron appeared beside them. Preacher, we need to talk. About, Iron's eyes flicked to Martha, then away. About what we're going to do. They moved to the corner of the diner, voices low. Martha watched them, too tired to wonder what they were discussing. She started collecting empty plates instead. Grizzly intercepted her. Ma'am, let me do that. I can manage. I know you can, but you've been on your feet for hours and these are my brother's dishes. He took the plates from her hands. Please, sit down. I don't... Mrs. Henderson. His voice was surprisingly gentle for such a big man. My mother was like you. Worked herself to the bone, taking care of everyone else. Never stopped until her body stopped for her. He met her eyes. Sit down. Let us take care of you for 5 minutes. Martha sat. It felt strange. Wrong almost. This was her diner. Her responsibility. She took care of people. That was the deal. But Grizzly was already washing dishes, and Blade was wiping down tables, and the wiry man with the silver beard was refilling coffee cups. For the first time in 3 years, Martha Henderson let someone else do the work. Iron returned 20 minutes later. He slid into the booth across from her, his expression unreadable. Mrs. Henderson, I need to ask you something. Seems like everyone needs to ask me something tonight. This is important. Something in his voice made her sit up straighter. Go ahead. Iron reached into his jacket and pulled out a worn photograph. He set it on the table between them and waited. Martha looked down. The photo was old, faded with age. It showed a young man barely 20 standing in front of a diner. He was thin and scared, wearing clothes that had seen better days. Behind him, a woman stood smiling, one hand on his shoulder. Martha recognized the diner immediately. Henderson's Haven. Before the sign broke, before Bill died, before everything fell apart. And the woman in the photo. That's me, she whispered. Yes, ma'am. But I don't... She looked closer at the young man, tried to see past the decades. I don't remember. 1994, Iron said. January. Worst storm in 20 years. I was 21, running from a father who liked to use his fists. My bike broke down 10 miles from here, and I walked the rest of the way in the snow. Martha's memory stirred. A shape in the darkness. A knock on the door. A boy, so cold he couldn't speak. You were half dead, she said slowly. Hypothermia. Bill wanted to call an ambulance, but you begged us not to. I was afraid, Arn said. Afraid my father would find me. Afraid the police would send me back. Afraid of everything. Bill fixed your motorcycle. Worked on it half the night. For free. I tried to pay, but he wouldn't take anything. Said the only payment he wanted was for me to pass it on someday. And I gave you money. The memory was clearer now. $200, everything in the register. You gave me more than money, Mrs. Henderson. You gave me something to eat and a place to sleep. You treated me like I mattered when the whole world had taught me I didn't. Iron's voice cracked slightly. When I left, you said something I've never forgotten. Martha remembered. Everyone deserves a second chance, son. Go make something of your life. Iron nodded. I've been looking for you ever since. 31 years. I knew the diner was on Highway 89, but I could never find it again. The storm that night, the confusion, I could never remember exactly where I was. Why were you looking? Iron met her eyes. Because you saved my life, and I never got to thank you. Martha stared at the photograph for a long time. The boy in the picture was a stranger, young and scared and desperate. Nothing like the man sitting across from her now. But the eyes were the same. Haunted, then harder now, but the same is. What happened to you, she asked, after you left? I rode south, ended up in California, found the Hells Angels a year later. Iron paused. Found a family. And your father's dead. Drank himself to death in '98. I didn't go to the funeral. I'm sorry. Don't be. Some people don't deserve forgiveness. He was one of them. Martha thought about that, about fathers and sons, about wounds that never heal and debts that never get paid. You became a leader, she said, president of your chapter. Because of you. That's not Mrs. Henderson. Iron leaned forward. That night in this diner, you showed me something I'd never seen before. Kindness without conditions. Generosity without expectations. You didn't know me. Didn't owe me anything, but you helped me anyway. He tapped the photograph. I've tried to live up to that ever since. Every decision I make, I ask myself, what would the woman from the diner do? What would she think of me? Martha felt tears forming. She blinked them back. I didn't do anything special. I just did what anyone would do. No, ma'am, that's where you're wrong. Most people would have locked the door. Most people would have called the cops. Most people would have seen a scared kid in biker clothes and decided he was someone else's problem. Iron shook his head. You're not most people. You never were. The other riders had gathered around listening. Martha looked up at 15 faces, 15 men she'd been taught to fear. 15 Hells Angels standing in her broken-down diner in the middle of the worst storm in 30 years. None of them looked dangerous anymore. They looked like what they were, tired men far from home, grateful for a warm meal and a kind word. Mrs. Henderson, Brian Grizzly said, that story Iron just told, it's not unique. What do you mean? I mean, everyone in this room has a story like that. Maybe not about you specifically, but about someone like you. Someone who helped when they didn't have to. Someone who showed mercy when the world showed none. He stepped forward. That's why we are who we are. Not the stuff you see on TV, not the criminals and outlaws. We're brothers, family, people who found each other when no one else wanted us. And people who remember, Iron added. We always remember. Every kindness, every debt, every promise. It's how we survive. Martha looked around the room. I still don't understand what you want from me. Iron smiled. We don't want anything from you, Mrs. Henderson. We want to give something back. He pulled out his phone. Brothers, it's time. Make the calls. Chitun. Martha watched in confusion as the riders dispersed. Every man pulled out a phone. Every man started talking, voices low and urgent, speaking in codes and references she didn't understand. Iron stayed at the table, his own phone pressed to his ear. This is Iron, Thunder Valley, Priority 1. A pause. Yeah, it's confirmed. Angel of 89, I found her. Another pause. No, I'm not kidding. It's her, the real one. He glanced at Martha. She's in trouble. 5 days, bank foreclosure. We need everyone, every chapter in range. Spread the word. He hung up and dialed another number. Viper, it's Iron. Listen carefully. Martha stood up. What's happening? What's Angel of 89? Danny, still wrapped in blankets but looking much healthier, appeared at her side. Mrs. Henderson, you really don't know. Know what? Danny looked at Iron, who nodded. It's a legend, Danny said. A story they tell on the road. About a woman somewhere on Highway 89 who helps travelers, feeds them, shelters them, saves their lives sometimes. Nobody knows her real name or exactly where she is. But everyone knows she exists. That's ridiculous. I'm not a legend. I'm just... You're her, Iron said, lowering his phone. You've always been her. Every biker in the western states knows the story. Hell truckers tell it too. The Angel of 89, the woman who never turns anyone away. But you didn't have to announce it, Mrs. Henderson. People talk. Stories spread. You've been helping strangers on this road for 42 years. Did you really think no one noticed? Martha sank back into the booth. 42 years, thousands of travelers, hundreds of meals, dozens of stranded motorists, broken down truckers, scared kids running from something they couldn't name. She'd never kept count, never expected anything in return. Bill used to say this place was a lighthouse, she murmured. I just kept the light on. And now Iron said the people you guided home are coming back, all of them, to make sure your light never goes out. The first vehicle arrived at 4:17 in the morning. Martha heard it before she saw it. An engine fighting through the storm headlights, cutting through the white. She went to the window. A pickup truck with Wyoming plates pulled into the parking lot. Then a sedan from Utah. Then a semi-truck with Colorado markings. Who are they? She asked. Iron appeared beside her. People you've helped, people who've been waiting years for a chance to help you back. The door opened and a blast of cold air rushed in. A man stepped through, big with a red beard and a face weathered by years on the road. He stamped snow from his boots and looked around the diner. His eyes found Martha. His face split into an enormous grin. Well, I'll be damned, he said. It's really you. Martha searched her memory. The beard was new. The weight was new. But something about the eyes, well, Tommy Patterson. You remember 2011. Your truck broke down and you stayed here 3 days, waiting for parts. Tommy crossed the room in 3 strides and wrapped her in a hug that lifted her feet off the ground. You let me sleep in the back booth, he said into her hair. Fed me for free. Called my wife so she wouldn't worry. I've been trying to find you for 13 years. How did you know I was in trouble? Tommy set her down and looked at Iron. The network. When Iron put out the word that the Angel of 89 needed help, every channel lit up. CB phone trees, everything. People are coming from everywhere, Mrs. Henderson. Everyone you ever helped. Everyone who ever heard the story. Martha's knees felt weak. How many? Iron checked his phone. So far, 47 confirmed, but the night's not over yet. Through the window, Martha could see more headlights approaching, more engines fighting the storm, all coming for her. By 5 in the morning, the parking lot was almost full. Cars, trucks, a few brave motorcycles whose riders had somehow navigated the blizzard. And people, so many people. They came through the door one by one, each with a story. A trucker whose engine blew in 2007. Martha had let him stay a week while he waited for parts. A family whose car broke down on Christmas Eve 2015. Martha had fed them dinner and given the kids presents from her own closet. A young woman who'd run away from an abusive boyfriend in 2019. Martha had hidden her for 3 days, then helped her get a bus ticket to her sister's house in Oregon. I didn't think anyone remembered, Martha kept saying. We all remember. They kept answering. Iron orchestrated everything like a general commanding troops. Calls were made. Resources were gathered. By 5:30, the small diner was packed with people who had one thing in common. Martha Henderson had helped them when no one else would. And now they were here to return the favor. This is too much, Martha said. I can't accept. You don't get a choice, Tommy interrupted. We've been waiting years for this. You're not taking it away from us now. But the bank wants thousands of dollars. I can't ask. You're not asking, we're giving. There's a difference. Martha looked around the room, at the face of strangers who weren't strangers at all, at the evidence of 42 years of small kindnesses coming back to her in one overwhelming wave. She thought about Bill, about his lighthouse, about keeping the light on. I don't know what to say, she whispered. Iron put a hand on her shoulder. You don't have to say anything, Mrs. Henderson. You just have to let us help, the way you helped us. The door opened again. More people, more stories, more proof that kindness never really disappears. It just waits for the right moment to come home. Outside, the storm was finally beginning to weaken. And inside Henderson's haven, something much bigger was just beginning. The sun hadn't risen yet, but Martha could feel it coming. Something in the air had shifted. The wind wasn't screaming anymore. The snow was falling softer, gentler, like the storm knew its time was almost up. But inside Henderson's haven, the real storm was just beginning. 63, Iron announced, checking his phone again. 63 confirmed and still counting. Martha shook her head. That's impossible. I haven't helped 63 people in my entire life. Ma'am, with respect, you've helped more than that in the last decade alone. Tommy Patterson laughed from across the room. Iron's right, Mrs. Henderson. You just don't keep track. We do. Martha wanted to argue, but another vehicle was pulling into the parking lot. A beat-up Chevy with New Mexico plates fighting through the last of the blizzard like it had somewhere important to be. The door opened before the engine even stopped. A woman stepped out, 50-something with gray streaks in her dark hair and a face that had seen hard times. She moved fast, almost running toward the diner. Martha didn't recognize her, but the woman recognized Martha. "Oh my God," she said, bursting through the door. "It's really you. After all these years, it's really you." "I'm sorry, 1996, February. My car broke down in a snowstorm and I was 8 months pregnant." The memory hit Martha like a freight train. A young woman, barely 25, crying in the parking lot. Contractions starting. No phone, no money, no way to get to a hospital. "Rosa," Martha whispered. "Rosa Mendez. Rosa Gutierrez now." The woman's eyes were streaming tears. "You drove me to the hospital yourself, stayed with me until my husband arrived, held my hand while I was screaming in labor. I remember you were so scared. I was terrified, and you told me something I've never forgotten. You said fear is just love holding its breath. Your baby is going to be fine because you already love them more than anything in the world." Martha's throat tightened. She'd forgotten saying that, forgotten so many things she'd said and done over the years, but the people she'd helped hadn't forgotten. "My daughter," Rosa said, "the one you helped bring into the world. She's 29 now. She's a nurse. She saves lives every single day because you saved ours." Martha couldn't speak. Rosa pulled her into a hug so tight it hurt. "I've been looking for you for almost 30 years, Rosa whispered. "Every year on Maria's birthday, I light a candle and pray for the angel who helped us. And now I finally get to say thank you." Iron appeared at Martha's side as Rosa finally let go. "Still think you haven't helped enough people?" he asked quietly. Martha wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "I just did what anyone would do." "No, ma'am, you did what almost no one does. That's the whole point." The door opened again. More people, more stories, more proof that 42 years of kindness had planted seeds Martha never knew existed, and they were all blooming at once. By 6 in the morning, the diner couldn't hold everyone. People were standing in the parking lot, huddled around cars with their engines running for warmth. Others had squeezed into every available space inside, sitting 3 to a booth lining the walls, filling every inch of floor space. Martha had lost count somewhere around 80. "This is insane," she muttered to herself. "This is absolutely insane." Grizzly heard her. "No, ma'am, this is family. Family, I don't even know half these people." "Doesn't matter, they know you, and in our world, that's enough." A commotion near the door drew Martha's attention. The crowd was parting, making way for someone important. A man stepped through, old, at least 75, with white hair and a face like carved leather. He walked with a cane, but there was nothing weak about him. His eyes were sharp, calculating, taking in everything at once. His jacket bore patches Martha had never seen before. Different from the Thunder Valley riders. Older, more elaborate. Iron straightened up immediately. "Henry," he said, "I didn't expect you to come personally. When I heard the Angel of '89 was real, you think I was going to stay home?" The old man's voice was like gravel scraping against stone. "Some things you have to see for yourself." He turned to Martha. "Mrs. Henderson, my name is Henry Wilson. I'm the oldest serving member of the Hells Angels in the western United States. Been riding for 53 years. Martha nodded, not sure what to say. "In 1972, Henry continued, my bike broke down on Highway 89. I was 22 years old, broke, and 300 miles from anyone who gave a damn about me." Martha's heart stuttered. "A man found me on the side of the road, brought me to his diner, fixed my bike, fed me, gave me $50 and told me to pay it forward." "Bill," Martha whispered. "That was Bill. That was Bill Henderson, your husband. The man who started all of this." Henry's eyes were wet. "I never forgot him. Never forgot what he did. When I heard his widow was in trouble, I got on a plane for the first time in 20 years. You flew here in this storm, landed in Billings 6 hours ago, drove the rest of the way. Henry leaned on his cane. Mrs. Henderson, your husband saved my life 53 years ago. I've spent every year since trying to live up to that. Now it's time I paid my debt. He reached into his jacket and pulled out an envelope. This is from me personally. Not the club, just me. Martha took the envelope with shaking hands, opened it. Inside was a cashier's check for $50,000. I can't accept this, she said immediately. This is too much. This is 53 years of interest on a $50 loan, Henry interrupted. And it's not enough. It'll never be enough. But it's a start. Martha stared at the check. $50,000. More money than she'd seen in her entire life. There's more coming, Henry said. Every chapter in the Western states is contributing. By the time we're done, that bank isn't going to know what hit them. But why, I don't understand. Bill helped you once 50 years ago. Why does that matter so much? Henry's face softened. Because kindness matters, Mrs. Henderson. Because in a world that teaches you to look out for yourself, your husband looked out for a stranger. Because that one act of generosity changed the entire course of my life. He paused. And because I made a promise to myself that day. I promised that if I ever had the chance to repay Bill Henderson, I would. Even if it took my whole life. He looked around the crowded diner. Looks like I'm not the only one who made that promise. The stories kept coming. A trucker named James who'd had a heart attack at the counter in 2008. Martha had performed CPR until the ambulance arrived. He was alive because of her. A teenage girl named Samantha who'd run away from home in 2014. Martha had talked her off the ledge, literally then called her parents and mediated a reconciliation. She was a mother of two now, a veteran named Marcus, who'd come home from Afghanistan in 2011, broken and suicidal. Martha had sat with him for 6 hours listening to him talk about the things he'd seen. She'd convinced him to get help. He was a counselor now helping other veterans find their way back. Story after story after story. 42 years of small kindnesses adding up to something enormous. I don't remember half of these, Martha admitted to Iron. How can they remember when I don't? Because it mattered to them, Iron said simply. The person who throws the life preserver doesn't always remember. But the person drowning never forgets. Martha thought about that. All those years, all those people. She'd just been doing what Bill taught on her, keeping the light on, being a lighthouse in the storm. She'd never expected anything in return, but here it was anyway. A tidal wave of gratitude she'd never seen coming. Martha, she turned. A man was pushing through the crowd, younger than most, maybe 35, with a face she almost recognized. Martha Henderson's fell. Yes. The man stopped in front of her. His eyes were red like he'd been crying. You don't remember me. I was just a kid, but you saved my mother's life in 2003. 2003. Cancer, she was driving herself to her last chemo appointment when her car broke down. You found her on the side of the road and drove her the rest of the way. Waited 4 hours until her treatment was done. Drove her home. Martha remembered now. A frail woman with a scarf covering her bald head. Too proud to ask for help. Too weak to refuse it. Linda, Martha said. Linda Morrison. The man's face crumpled. She died last year. But she talked about you until the very end. The angel on Highway 89 who gave her 3 more years with her family. 3 years she wouldn't have had if you hadn't stopped. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. She wrote this for you. Made me promise I'd find you someday and deliver it. Martha took the paper with trembling hands, unfolded it. The handwriting was shaky, the letters uneven. Written by someone whose hands no longer worked the way they should. Dear Angel, Martha read aloud, her voice breaking. I never learned your name, but I want you to know that because of you, I got to see my son graduate college. I got to meet my granddaughter. I got to tell my husband I loved him one more time. You gave me the greatest gift anyone has ever given me more time. I don't know if we'll meet again in this life, but if there's a heaven, I'll be waiting at the gate to thank you properly. With all my love, Linda. Martha couldn't read anymore. The tears came and she couldn't stop them. 42 years. So many people, so many moments she'd forgotten, but they hadn't forgotten her. Iron called the room to attention at 7 in the morning. The sun was finally rising, turning the snow-covered mountains pink and gold. The storm had passed, leaving behind a world transformed by white. But the transformation inside the diner was even more profound. "Listen up," Aaron said. "I've got numbers." The room fell silent. "As of right now, we've got 112 people here. That's not counting the ones who couldn't make it through the storm, but are sending money anyway." A murmur rippled through the crowd. Total contribution so far $97,000. Martha's knees buckled. Grizzly caught her. "Easy, ma'am. Breathe." 97,000, she whispered. That's more than enough to save your diner," Iron confirmed. "But we're not done." He pulled out his phone and dialed a number. "Viper, status report." He listened for a moment, then smiled. "You heard it, Mrs. Henderson. Salt Lake chapter is rolling hot. 23 bikes. They'll be here in 2 hours. 23 more. And that's just Salt Lake. Denver's sending 15. Phoenix is sending 18. Oakland," he checked his phone again. "Oakland's sending 42. 42. Big Mike Patterson's orders. He said 42 years of kindness deserves 42 bikes. He's sentimental like that." Martha couldn't process it. 42 bikes from Oakland, 23 from Salt Lake, 15 from Denver, 18 from Phoenix, and already 112 people packed into her tiny diner. "This is a dream," she said. "I'm dreaming. I'm going to wake up and none of this will be real." Iron took her hand. "This is real, Mrs. Henderson. More real than anything I've ever been part of. And it's happening because of you." "But I didn't do anything special. You just kept the light on," Iron finished. "For 42 years, through everything you kept the light on. And now everyone you ever guided home is coming back to make sure that light never goes out." He squeezed her hand. "You built something here, Mrs. Henderson. Something bigger than you ever knew. And now it's time for that something to take care of you." The CB radio crackled to life for the first time in months. Martha had almost forgotten it was there, tucked in the corner behind the register, its antenna bent and dusty. But someone had fixed it during the night. Someone had cleaned it up and plugged it in and tuned it to the right frequency. And now it was alive with voices. "Breaker 19, this is Road Dog calling for the Angel. You out there, darlin'." Martha stared at the radio. "Go ahead," Iron encouraged. "Answer it." She picked up the microphone with shaking hands. This is Henderson's Haven. Who's calling?" "Hot damn, it's really her." The voice was jubilant. "Boys, I've got the Angel on the line, Road Dog here. Mrs. Henderson, I'm a trucker out of Wyoming. You helped me change a tire in the rain back in 2009. I've been telling that story for 15 years. "I remember you," Martha said slowly. "You had a picture of your daughter on your dashboard. You were rushing home for her birthday. Made it with 2 hours to spare thanks to you. Listen, I've got a convoy forming up here. 37 trucks. We're hauling everything we can scrape together. Food supplies, cash. We'll be there by noon. 37 trucks. That's just the Wyoming crew. I've been on the radio all night. Colorado's got another 20. Utah's got 15. Even got some boys coming down from Canada, if you can believe it." Martha couldn't believe it. Couldn't believe any of it. "Road Dog, I don't know what to say." "Don't say anything, Mrs. Henderson. Just keep that coffee hot. We've got a lot of hungry folks heading your way." The radio clicked off. Martha set down the microphone and looked at Iron. "Truckers, too. The Angel of 89 isn't just a biker legend, Mrs. Henderson. It's a trucker legend, too. You've been helping people on this road for 4 decades. Did you really think only one group noticed?" Martha sat down heavily in the nearest booth. "Bill," she whispered. "Bill, are you seeing this?" She could almost hear his answer. "I told you this place was special, Martha. I just never knew how special." The first motorcycle convoy arrived at 8:30. Martha heard them before she saw them. That distinctive rumble multiplied by dozens. The thunder of chrome and steel rolling through the mountains like an army on the march. She went to the window and stopped breathing. The road was filled with motorcycles. Not dozens. Hundreds. They stretched as far as she could see, a river of chrome and leather flowing toward Henderson's Haven. Headlights blazed in the morning sun. Engines roared in perfect harmony. "Oh my God," Martha whispered. Iron appeared beside her. "Salt Lake chapter arrived early," he said. "Picked up some friends along the way." Some friends, there must be. 217. At last count. Martha pressed her hand against the window. 217 motorcycles. All coming for her. The lead bikes pulled into the parking lot and Martha saw the patches. Salt Lake, Denver, Phoenix, Cheyenne, Boise. Names she'd never heard. Chapters she didn't know existed. But they all knew her. The riders dismounted and started walking toward the diner. Big men in leather jackets, their breath fogging in the cold morning air. They moved with purpose, with determination, with gratitude. The door opened and they started filing in. One by one, each one stopping in front of Martha, each one with something to say. "You helped my brother in 2015. He told me to thank you. My father passed through here in 1998. You gave him directions when he was lost. He talked about you for years. I've never met you before, but I've heard the stories. Wanted to see the legend for myself. You don't know me, but I know you. Everyone knows you. You're the angel of '89. Story after story, face after face. Martha shook hands until her arm ached, accepted hugs until her ribs hurt, listened to stories until her head spun, and still they kept coming. By 10 in the morning, the parking lot had overflowed. Motorcycles were parked on the road, in the fields, anywhere there was solid ground. The diner was so packed that people had to rotate in and out just to breathe, and the money kept piling up. Iron had commandeered a table near the register and turned it into a command center. Cash went into one box, checks went into another. Someone had even set up a laptop to accept electronic transfers. 147,000, Iron announced, and climbing. Martha didn't know how to react anymore. She'd gone numb somewhere around the 100,000 mark. "That's enough to save the diner 10 times over," she said. "It's not just about saving the diner anymore, Mrs. Henderson. It's about building something bigger." Bigger. Iron pulled out a rolled-up paper and spread it on the table. It was an architectural drawing, professional, detailed, showing an expanded version of Henderson's Haven that Martha barely recognized. "What is this? This is the future. Henderson's Haven Biker Rest Stop, official sanctuary for every Hells Angels chapter from California to the Mississippi." Martha stared at the drawing, the expanded parking lot, the biker lodge, the memorial wing. "That's Bill's name," she said, pointing at the memorial section. "William Bill Henderson Memorial Wing. He started all of this 53 years ago when he helped Henry Wilson. Seems only right that his name should be on the building. But this must cost millions. 1.2 million to be exact, and we're going to raise every penny. That's impossible." "Mrs. Henderson," Iron leaned forward. "In the past 6 hours, we've raised almost $150,000 from people who've never met each other. By the end of today, that number's going to double. By the end of the week, we'll have everything we need. But why? I still don't understand why." Iron took her hand again. "Because you kept the light on, and now we're going to make sure that light shines brighter than ever." The trucker convoy arrived at noon. Martha thought she'd seen everything by then. She thought nothing could surprise her anymore. She was wrong. The truck stretched for miles. Big rigs, 18-wheelers, every color, every company, every state. They rolled down Highway 89 like a parade, air horns blasting, headlights flashing. The CB radio went crazy. "Angel, this is Big Bear from Colorado. We're rolling in hot with 22 trucks and enough food to feed an army." "Angel, this is Midnight Runner from Nebraska. Drove 14 hours straight to be here. Wouldn't have missed this for the world." "Angel, this is Lucky Lady from Texas. Yes, Texas. News travels fast when it's about you." Martha grabbed the microphone. "How did you all know? How did word spread so fast?" A pause, then a voice she didn't recognize. "Mrs. Henderson, this is Long Haul Larry from the American Truckers Association. I've been driving these roads for 40 years, and I've been hearing stories about the Angel of '89 for at least 30 of them. When we found out you were real and you were in trouble," he paused. "Let's just say we take care of our own. And you've been taking care of us for longer than most of us have been driving. The truck started pulling into the makeshift parking area that the bikers had cleared in the field next to the diner. Drivers climbed out, big men, weathered men, men who spent their lives on the road far from home, far from family, men who'd found something like family at Henderson's Haven. They brought food, mountains of it, enough to feed everyone there and still have leftovers. They brought supplies, blankets, heaters, generators, everything a diner in the mountains might need. And they brought money, cash stuffed in envelopes, checks written on napkins. One driver handed Martha a pickle jar filled with coins. "Been saving this for something important," he said. "Can't think of anything more important than this." Martha looked at the jar. It couldn't have been more than $50 in loose change, but it meant more than any of the checks. "Thank you," she whispered. "No, ma'am, thank you." Grizzly found Martha sitting alone in booth 7 at 2 in the afternoon. She'd finally escaped the crowd just for a moment, just to breathe, just to process everything that was happening. He slid into the seat across from her. "You okay?" "I don't know. I honestly don't know." "Fair enough." He was quiet for a moment. "Can I tell you something, Mrs. Henderson?" "Of course. I've been with the Angels for 22 years. I've seen a lot of things, done a lot of things. Some of them I'm proud of. Some of them..." He shook his head. "But I have never seen anything like this." "Like what?" "Like this. Like what's happening here. Hundreds of people dropping everything, traveling through a blizzard just to help one woman save her diner." He gestured at the packed room beyond the booth. "Do you know what that means?" "I don't know what any of this means." "It means you matter. It means what you did mattered. All those years of keeping the light on all those small kindnesses you thought nobody noticed." He met her eyes. "They noticed, Mrs. Henderson. They all noticed. And now they're here to make sure you know it." Martha felt tears threatening again. "I just did what Bill would have done." "Then Bill must have been one hell of a man." "He was. He really was." Grizzly reached into his jacket and pulled out a photograph. "This is my daughter, Emily. She's 16. Martha looked at the picture, a pretty girl with her father's eyes and her mother's smile. "She's beautiful. She's got leukemia. That's why we were riding through the blizzard, trying to get to the hospital in Denver. They called and said she'd taken a turn for the worse." Martha's heart clenched. "Grizzly, I'm so sorry." "I got a call this morning." His voice cracked. "She's in remission. The treatment worked. She's gonna be okay." "Oh, thank God." "I prayed last night. First time in years. I sat right there in that booth while you were taking care of Danny, and I prayed harder than I've ever prayed in my life." He wiped his eyes with the back of his hand. "And this morning I got a miracle." "That's wonderful. That's so wonderful. But here's the thing, Mrs. Henderson. While I was praying for my daughter, you were taking care of my brother. You were feeding us and warming us and treating us like human beings when most people would have locked the door and called the cops." He leaned forward. "I don't know if God answers prayers, but I know you answered ours last night. And I'll never forget that. None of us will." Martha reached across the table and took his hand. "You go see your daughter Grizzly. As soon as this storm clears, you get on that bike and you go see her." "I will, but first I'm going to make sure you're taken care of. That's what family does." "We're not family. We are now." Yim. The final count came at 6 in the evening. Iron stood on a chair in the middle of the diner, his phone in his hand, his voice carrying over the crowd. "Listen up, final numbers for the day." The room went quiet. Motorcycles on site 347. A cheer went up. Trucks on site 89. Another cheer. Total people who came to support Martha Henderson today over 600. The cheer was deafening. And the total amount raised in the past 24 hours. He paused for effect. $263,000. Martha's legs gave out. She would have hit the floor if Grizzly hadn't caught her. "Easy, Mrs. Henderson. Breathe." 263,000. "And still climbing," Iron said, jumping down from the chair. "By the end of the week, we'll have enough for the full expansion. Henderson's Haven Biker Rest Stop is going to be a reality." Martha looked around the room, at the bikers and truckers and strangers who'd become family, at the faces of people she'd helped over 42 years. at the evidence of a lifetime of kindness coming back to her in one overwhelming wave. "I don't deserve this," she whispered. "Yes, ma'am," Iron said, putting a hand on her shoulder. "You do. You deserve every bit of it." Outside, the sun was setting behind the mountains, painting the snow gold and orange and pink. And inside Henderson's haven, Martha Henderson finally understood what Bill had been trying to tell her all along. The light was never just for the travelers. The light was for everyone. Martha hadn't slept in 36 hours. Her body screamed for rest, but her mind wouldn't stop racing. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the numbers. $263,000, 347 motorcycles, 600 people who'd dropped everything to save a diner they'd never seen. It didn't feel real. None of it felt real. She was standing behind the counter at 7 in the morning brewing her 5th pot of coffee when the front door slammed open. A man walked in. He wasn't a biker, wasn't a trucker. He wore a suit that cost more than Martha's monthly electricity bill, and his shoes were polished so bright they reflected the overhead lights. Behind him stood 2 more men in suits. Younger. Harder. The kind of men who got paid to look intimidating. The diner went quiet. Iron stood up slowly from booth 7. "Can I help you?" Martha asked, her voice steady despite the alarm bells ringing in her head. The man in the expensive suit smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. "Mrs. Henderson, my name is Richard Crane. I'm the regional director for First Mountain Bank." Martha's stomach dropped. "The bank sent you in person. When we heard about your little gathering here, we thought it warranted personal attention." Crane looked around the diner, his lip curling slightly at the leather jackets and tattoos. "Quite the crowd you've assembled. These are my friends." "Friends." Crane repeated the word like it tasted bad. "Mrs. Henderson, I'm here to discuss your situation, perhaps somewhere more private. Anything you have to say to me, you can say in front of my friends." Crane's smile tightened. "Very well. I'm here to inform you that First Mountain Bank is accelerating your foreclosure timeline. You now have 48 hours to vacate the premises." The words hit Martha like a physical blow. 48 hours? The notice said 5 days. The notice said up to 5 days at the bank's discretion. Given the unusual circumstances, we've decided to exercise that discretion. Iron stepped forward. "What unusual circumstances?" Crane turned to look at him, his expression shifting to something between contempt and caution. "And you are a concerned citizen. What unusual circumstances?" "The gathering of known criminal organizations on bank property for one, the potential for property damage, the liability issues." Crane straightened his tie. "First Mountain Bank has a responsibility to protect its assets." "Your assets?" Martha's voice cracked. "This is my home. My husband and I built this place from nothing. We've been paying that mortgage for 42 years. And you've been delinquent for the past 4 months. The bank has been more than patient." "Patient?" Iron laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You call this patient? The woman's husband died 3 years ago. She's been struggling to keep this place alive by herself, and your idea of patience is showing up with lawyers and accelerating her eviction." Crane's eyes narrowed. "I don't believe I was speaking to you." "You are now." The 2 men behind Crane shifted their weight hands, moving toward their jackets. The bikers in the room noticed. Grizzly stood up, then Blade, then Preacher, then a dozen more. Within seconds, the diner had transformed from a casual gathering into something that felt dangerously close to a confrontation. Crane's confidence flickered. "Mrs. Henderson," he said, his voice slightly less steady, "I strongly advise you to consider your position. The bank is prepared to be reasonable, but only if you cooperate." "Reasonable?" Martha stepped out from behind the counter. "You want to talk about reasonable? I've paid that bank over $400,000 over the past 42 years. $400,000 in interest and principal and fees and insurance. And now, because I fell behind for 4 months, you're going to take everything." "Business is business, Mrs. Henderson." "This isn't business. This is my life." Crane opened his mouth to respond, but Iron cut him off. "How much does she owe?" "I'm sorry. The delinquent amount." "How much?" Crane hesitated. "That's confidential information." "She's standing right there. She knows how much she owes. I'm asking you to confirm it." Another hesitation. Then $14,642, plus fees and penalties. Iron reached into his jacket. Crane's bodyguards tensed. But Iron just pulled out an envelope. The same envelope Henry Wilson had given Martha the day before. $50,000, Warren said. Say, that covers the delinquent amount plus a year of payments in advance. Take it and get out. Crane stared at the envelope. It's not that simple. Make it that simple. The bank has already initiated foreclosure proceedings. There's paperwork, legal processes. I can't just... You can't or you won't. Crane's face hardened. The bank's decision is final. Mrs. Henderson has 48 hours to vacate. If she refuses, we'll have no choice but to involve law enforcement. He turned toward the door. Iron's voice stopped him cold. Mr. Crane, the banker turned back. You know who we are. Crane's eyes flicked to the patches on Iron's jacket. Hell's Angels, Thunder Valley. Chapter. I'm aware. Then you know we don't make threats. We make promises. Iron stepped closer. Here's my promise. If you try to take this woman's home, every Hell's Angels chapter from California to Chicago is going to know about it. Every trucker who's ever heard of the Angel of 89 is going to know about it. Every news station, every newspaper, every social media account in America is going to know that First Mountain Bank evicted a 72-year-old widow who spent her entire life helping strangers. He smiled. How do you think that's going to play on the evening news? Crane's face went pale. Are you threatening me? I'm educating you. There's a difference. For a long moment, nobody moved. Then Crane turned and walked out, his bodyguards following close behind. The door slammed shut. Martha let out a breath she didn't know she'd been holding. That's not the end of it, she said quietly. He'll be back. I know, Iron said, but we'll be ready. I am. The news crews arrived 3 hours later. Martha didn't know who'd called them, didn't know how they'd heard, but suddenly there were vans in the parking lot with satellite dishes on top, and reporters with microphones were pushing through the crowd of bikers. Mrs. Henderson, can we get a statement? Mrs. Henderson, is it true that Hell's Angels are protecting your diner? Mrs. Henderson, how do you feel about the bank's decision to accelerate your foreclosure? Martha stood frozen behind the counter, overwhelmed by the chaos. Iron appeared at her side. You don't have to talk to them. If I don't, they'll make up their own story. Good point, he thought for a moment. Okay, but I'm coming with you. They stepped outside together. The camera swung toward them, immediately flashing lights and shouted questions, creating a wall of noise that made Martha's head spin. Iron raised his hand. The crowd went quiet. Mrs. Henderson will make a brief statement, he said. Then we ask that you respect her privacy. He stepped aside. Martha looked at the cameras, at the microphones, at the faces of strangers waiting to hear what she had to say. She took a deep breath. My name is Martha Henderson. My husband Bill and I opened this diner 42 years ago. We called it Henderson's Haven because that's what we wanted it to be. A haven. A safe place for travelers on a dangerous road. Her voice steadied as she spoke. For 42 years, we kept our doors open, fed hungry people, helped stranded motorists, gave shelter to anyone who needed it. We never asked for anything in return. We just did what we thought was right. She paused. 3 years ago, my husband died. I tried to keep going on my own, but it was hard. I fell behind on my payments, and now the bank wants to take everything we built. A reporter shouted a question, but Martha kept going. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know if I'll be able to save this place, but I want you to know something. She gestured at the crowd behind her, the bikers, the truckers, the hundreds of people who'd come from everywhere to support her. These people aren't criminals. They're not outlaws. They're human beings who remember what it feels like to be helped when you're at your lowest. And they came here to help me because that's what good people do. Her voice cracked. My husband used to say that this place was a lighthouse, that we existed to guide people home. I never really understood what he meant until now. She wiped her eyes. These people are my home, and I'm going to fight for them the same way they're fighting for me. She turned and walked back into the diner. The cameras kept rolling. The interview aired on the evening news. By 9 o'clock, it had been picked up by national networks. By midnight, it was trending on every social media platform in the country. Martha watched it all from booth 7, surrounded by bikers who were glued to their phones tracking the spread of her story in real time. 2 million views, Danny announced, and climbing. The hashtag Save Henderson's Haven is #1 on Twitter, Preacher added. #1 in the whole country. ABC wants an exclusive interview, someone else called out. So does NBC and CBS and Fox. Martha shook her head. I don't want interviews. I just want to save my diner. This is how you save your diner, Irons said. Public pressure, media attention. The bank can't foreclose on America's favorite grandmother without looking like the villains they are. I'm not America's favorite grandmother. You are now. A new voice cut through the noise. Mrs. Henderson. Martha looked up. A young woman stood in the doorway. Early 20s with short dark hair and intense eyes. She wore jeans and a leather jacket, but no patches. No club affiliation. Who are you? Iron asked. My name is Jessica Hartwell. I'm a journalist with the Washington Post. She held up her press credentials. I've been investigating First Mountain Bank for the past 2 years. The room went quiet. Investigating them for what? Martha asked. Jessica stepped forward. Predatory lending practices, illegal foreclosures, targeting elderly homeowners and small business owners with adjustable rate mortgages designed to fail. She pulled a folder from her bag. Mrs. Henderson, you're not the first person they've done this to. You're just the first one who fought back. Martha took the folder. Inside were dozens of documents. Court filings, newspaper clippings, testimonies from people who'd lost their homes to First Mountain Bank. They have a pattern, Jessica continued. They identify vulnerable property owners, usually elderly, usually alone. They offer refinancing deals that look good on paper but have hidden clauses that trigger massive payment increases after a few years. When the owners can't pay, the bank forecloses and sells the property to developers. Developers? Iron's voice was sharp. What developers? Jessica smiled grimly. That's where it gets interesting. First Mountain Bank is owned by a holding company called Cascade Investments. Cascade Investments is owned by Richard Crane. Martha felt sick. The man who was here this morning, he owns the bank. He is the bank. The regional director title is just a cover. He's been running this scheme for over a decade, using the bank to acquire properties and then developing them through shell companies. So when he offered to foreclose on my diner, he was planning to tear it down and build a luxury resort. The location is perfect. Right on Highway 89, surrounded by mountains. Worth millions to the right buyer. Iron slammed his fist on the table. That son of a bitch. There's more, Jessica said. I've been building this case for 2 years, but I could never get anyone to go on the record. Everyone's too scared. Crane has lawyers' connections money. He destroys anyone who tries to fight him. She looked at Martha. But you're not scared, are you? Martha thought about Bill, about the diner, about 42 years of keeping the light on. No, she said, I'm not scared. Then help me expose him. Tell your story. Let me document everything that's happening here. With your testimony and the public attention you have already generated, we might finally be able to bring him down. Martha looked at the folder in her hands, at the names of all the people Crane had destroyed. These people, she said, the ones who lost their homes, can they get them back? If we can prove fraud, there's a chance. It won't be easy, but there's a chance. Martha closed the folder. Then let's do it. The next 48 hours were chaos. Jessica Hartwell set up a command center in the back of the diner, interviewing bikers and truckers and gathering testimonies. Every person who'd been helped by Martha over the years had a story to tell, and Jessica recorded all of them. Meanwhile, the media circus outside grew larger by the hour. News vans from every major network lined Highway 89. Helicopters circled overhead. Journalists from as far away as Europe showed up wanting to document the story of the grandmother who'd united bikers and truckers against a corrupt bank. And the money kept coming. 400,000, Iron announced at the end of the second day. $400,000 in donations from people who've never even met you. Martha couldn't process the number. Who's sending this money? Everyone. Truckers from coast to coast. Bikers from every chapter in the country. Regular people who saw you on the news and wanted to help. I can't accept money from strangers. You already did. 36 hours ago, everyone in this room was a stranger. Iron smiled. Now we're family. The deadline came at midnight. Crane had said 48 hours. 48 hours to vacate or the bank would involve law enforcement. Martha stood at the window watching the clock tick toward 12. He's not going to do it, Danny said. Not with all these cameras here. He might, Preacher countered. Men like Crane don't like being embarrassed. Sometimes they double down out of spite. Either way, we're ready, Iron said. Nobody's touching this place tonight. Midnight arrived. Nothing happened. 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock. Still nothing. At 4 in the morning, Iron's phone rang. He answered, listened for a moment, then hung up. His face was unreadable. What? Martha asked. What is it? That was my contact at the county sheriff's office. Crane tried to get them to execute the eviction tonight. And the sheriff refused. Said he wasn't going to send his deputies into a crowd of 300 bikers and 50 news cameras for a civil matter that could be resolved in court. Martha let out a breath. So we're safe. For now, Crane's filing an emergency motion in federal court tomorrow morning. He's going to try to get a judge to force the eviction. Will it work? Iron was quiet for a moment. I don't know, but we've got something he doesn't. What's that? He pointed at the window. Outside, the parking lot was still full. Bikers sleeping in their tents. Truckers dozing in their cabs. Hundreds of people who'd given up days of their lives to protect a diner they'd never seen. We've got an army, Iron said, and armies don't give up without a fight. So the court hearing was scheduled for 10 in the morning. Martha rode to the courthouse with Iron and Grizzly, surrounded by an escort of 50 motorcycles. The thunder of engines drew crowds on every street corner, people stopping to stare at the procession rolling through downtown. The courthouse steps were already packed when they arrived. Supporters on one side, Crane's lawyers on the other. Media everywhere, cameras flashing, reporters was shouting questions. Martha walked through it all with her head held high. Inside the courtroom, then, she found herself facing Richard Crane for the second time. He looked different today, less confident. His suit was just as expensive, but there were circles under his eyes and his smile had lost its edge. Good, Martha thought. Let him see what it feels like to be afraid. The judge, a stern woman in her 60s named Patricia Hawkins, called the proceedings to order. This is an emergency motion filed by First Mountain Bank to enforce immediate foreclosure on the property known as Henderson's Haven. Mr. Crane, you may present your case. Crane stood. Your Honor, the facts are simple. Mrs. Henderson is in default on her mortgage. She has been in default for over 4 months. The bank has followed all proper procedures for foreclosure. We're simply asking the court to enforce our legal rights. Judge Hawkins turned to Martha. Mrs. Henderson, do you have legal representation? Before Martha could answer, the courtroom doors burst open. A man walked in, tall, silver-haired, wearing a suit that somehow managed to look both expensive and worn in. He carried a battered leather briefcase and walked with the confidence of someone who'd won more cases than he'd lost. Your Honor, my name is Thomas Whitfield. I'm representing Mrs. Henderson. Crane's face went white. Whitfield, what are you doing here? I'm doing my job, Richard. Same as always. Judge Hawkins looked between them. You two know each other. We went to law school together, Whitfield said. I've also been opposing counsel on how many cases now, Richard? 14, 15. 17, Crane said through gritted teeth. 17. And I believe I've won all 17. Whitfield smiled. Your Honor, I apologize for the dramatic entrance. I was on a plane from New York when I heard about this case. Took a red-eye and came straight from the airport. Why would a New York attorney take interest in a small foreclosure case in Montana? Whitfield set his briefcase on the table. Because this isn't a small foreclosure case, Your Honor. This is the tip of an iceberg, and I intend to prove it. The next 3 hours were the most intense of Martha's life. Whitfield laid out the case methodically, the predatory lending practices, the hidden clauses in the mortgage, the pattern of targeting elderly homeowners, the connection between First Mountain Bank and Cascade Investments. He called witnesses, former bank employees who'd been fired for raising concerns, previous foreclosure victims who'd lost everything, a forensic accountant who traced the money trail from the bank to Crane's personal accounts. And finally, he called Jessica Hartwell. The young journalist took the stand and presented 2 years of research, documents, emails, recorded phone calls that proved Crane had personally orchestrated the scheme. By the time she finished, Crane looked like a man watching his empire crumble. Judge Hawkins called a recess. Martha sat in the hallway with Iron and Grizzly, too exhausted to speak. "It's working," Iron said. "Did you see his face? He knows he's finished." "It's not over yet," Martha warned. "Men like Crane don't give up easy." "Neither do we," the bailiff called them back into the courtroom. Judge Hawkins took her seat, her expression unreadable. "I've reviewed the evidence presented today," she said, "and I have to say in 30 years on the bench, I've rarely seen anything quite like this." She turned to Crane. "Mr. Crane, the evidence suggests a pattern of fraud, predatory lending, and abuse of the judicial system. I'm denying your motion for immediate foreclosure." A cheer erupted from Martha's side of the courtroom, but Judge Hawkins wasn't finished. "Furthermore, I'm referring this matter to the State Attorney General for criminal investigation, and I'm issuing a temporary injunction preventing First Mountain Bank from taking any action against Mrs. Henderson's property until that investigation is complete." She banged her gavel. "Court is adjourned." Martha couldn't move. It was over. After everything, it was finally over. Iron pulled her to her feet. "You did it," he said. "You actually did it." "We did it," Martha corrected. "All of us." She looked around the courtroom at the faces of the people who'd fought for her, the bikers, the truckers, the journalist who'd risked her career to expose the truth, the lawyer who'd flown across the country to defend a stranger. And somewhere she knew Bill was watching. Proud of her. Proud of all of them. The light was still on, and now it would never go out. The courtroom victory should have felt like an ending. It didn't. Martha stood on the courthouse steps surrounded by cheering bikers and flashing cameras, and all she could think about was the mountain of work still ahead. The diner was safe, but it was also falling apart. The heating system wheezed like a dying man. The roof leaked in 3 places. Half the kitchen equipment hadn't worked properly in years. Winning the battle didn't mean winning the war. Iron seemed to read her mind. "You're thinking about everything that still needs to be done. Am I that obvious?" "You've got that look, same one my mother used to get when she was worrying about things she couldn't control." Martha managed a tired smile. "Your mother sounds like a smart woman." She was, worried herself into an early grave. Iron put a hand on her shoulder. "Don't make the same mistake. Let us help." "You've already helped her more than I can ever repay." "Then stop trying to repay and start accepting. That's what family does." A reporter pushed through the crowd, microphone extended. "Mrs. Henderson, what's next for Henderson's Haven?" Martha looked at Iron, at Grizzly and Preacher and Danny, at the hundreds of faces that had become familiar over the past few days. "We rebuild," she said, "together." The crowd erupted. No. They held the planning meeting that night. The diner was packed, every booth filled, every counter stool occupied. People standing along the walls and spilling out into the parking lot. Iron had set up a whiteboard near the register covered with notes and diagrams and numbers that made Martha's head spin. "Okay, listen up," he called out. "Here's where we stand." The room went quiet. Total funds raised $467,000. That covers the mortgage, back payments, legal fees, and leaves us with a significant surplus for renovations. A cheer went up. Iron raised his hand for silence. "But here's the thing, the diner's in worse shape than we thought. The inspection team I brought in this morning found problems with the foundation, the electrical system, the plumbing, and the roof. If we just patch things up, we'll be back in the same situation in 5 years." "So what do we do?" someone called out. "We don't patch, we rebuild." Iron pointed at the whiteboard. "Full renovation, new foundation, new systems, expanded capacity. The works." Martha stepped forward. "That sounds expensive." "It is. We're looking at about $1.2 million for the full project." A murmur rippled through the crowd. "We don't have $1.2 million, Martha said. "Not yet. But we've got something better." Iron smiled. "We've got skills." He gestured around the room. "Look at this crowd. We've got electricians, plumbers, carpenters, roofers, mechanics. Between the bikers and the truckers, we've got every trade covered. If we do the labor ourselves, we can cut costs by 60%. "You're talking about volunteers," Martha said. "People who'd work for free." "I'm talking about family. Family doesn't charge. A big man in a Denver chapter jacket stood up. I'm a licensed electrician. Been doing it for 30 years. I'll handle the whole electrical system. Another man rose. Master plumber, Phoenix chapter. I'm in. Carpenter here. Spent 20 years building custom homes before I retired. Roofer, did commercial work for 2 decades. One by one they stood, men and women with skills and experience, offering their labor for nothing but the satisfaction of helping. Martha felt tears threatening again. I don't know what to say. Say yes, Arn replied. That's all we need. Martha looked around the room, at the faces of people who'd been strangers a week ago and were now offering to rebuild her life. Yes, she whispered. Yes. The construction started the next morning. Martha watched in amazement as the parking lot transformed into a work site. Trucks arrived carrying lumber and concrete and tools. Teams formed up, each one tackling a different section of the project. And everywhere she looked, there was someone she knew. Grizzly hauling drywall like it weighed nothing. Blade measuring and cutting with the precision of a surgeon. Danny running supplies back and forth, learning as he went. Even Preacher pitched in his silver beard, covered in sawdust, as he helped frame the new addition. You're not working. Martha turned. A woman stood behind her, tall and striking with steel gray hair pulled back in a tight braid. Her leather jacket bore patches Martha had never seen before. I'm sorry, do I know you? Not yet. The woman extended her hand. Victoria Stone, Oakland chapter. Everyone calls me Queen. You're the first female Hell's Angel I've ever met. I hear that a lot. Queen smiled. Big Mike sent me. Said I should check in on the Angel of 89, make sure the bows weren't screwing things up. Big Mike Patterson, I haven't seen him yet. He's coming. Had to handle some business first, but he wanted me here early to supervise. Queen looked around at the chaos of construction. Good thing, too, these idiots would build the roof before the foundation if someone didn't keep them in line. Martha laughed. It felt good. What did Big Mike tell you about me? That you saved his life 20 years ago. That you've been saving lives on this highway for as long as anyone can remember. That when he heard you were in trouble, he didn't even hesitate. Queen met Martha's eyes. He said the world doesn't deserve people like you, but it needs them anyway. Martha didn't know how to respond. He also said you'd try to refuse help. Queen continued. Said you'd feel guilty about everyone going to so much trouble. Said I should tell you to shut up and let people love you. He said that his exact words were less polite, but that was the general idea. Martha looked out at the worksite, at the dozens of people who'd given up their lives to rebuild hers. I still don't understand why, she said quietly. I just ran a diner. I just helped a few people here and there. Why does that matter so much? Queen was quiet for a moment. Can I tell you a story? Of course, Venom. 23 years ago, I was in a bad place. Married to a man who liked to use me as a punching bag. No family, no friends, no way out. Martha's heart clenched. One night he beat me so bad I couldn't walk. I crawled out of that house and somehow made it to my car. Drove for hours, didn't know where I was going. Just knew I had to get away. Queen's voice stayed steady, but Martha could hear the old pain beneath the words. My car broke down on Highway 89, middle of nowhere, middle of the night. I was bleeding and broken and ready to die right there on the side of the road. And someone found you. A woman driving home from a late shift somewhere. She saw my car, pulled over, saw me lying in the dirt. Queen met Martha's eyes. She didn't call the bus, didn't take me to a hospital where they had asked questions. She took me to her house, cleaned me up, let me stay until I was strong enough to leave. Who was she? I never got her name. I was too out of it that first night, and by the time I could think straight, I was too scared to ask. Scared he'd find me, scared of everything. Queen pulled something from her pocket, a worn photograph creased and faded with age. But I took this while she was sleeping. I took this so I'd remember her face. She handed the photograph to Martha. Martha looked at it, and the world stopped. The photograph showed a woman standing in front of a diner. Younger, 49 years old instead of 72, but unmistakably, undeniably her. That's me, Martha whispered. That's Henderson's Haven. I know. But I don't remember. The memory surfaced slowly. A summer night in 2002. A car on the shoulder, a woman covered in blood, barely conscious. I brought you back here, Martha said. You stayed in the back room for a week. I told everyone you were my niece visiting from out of state. You saved my life. Queen's voice cracked for the first time. You gave me a chance to start over. I found the angels 2 years later. Found a family, found myself, built a life I never thought I'd have. She took the photograph back. I've carried this picture for 23 years. Every day I looked at it and promised myself that if I ever found you, I'd repay the debt. Martha was crying now. You don't owe me anything. I owe you everything. Queen pulled her into a fierce hug, and now I finally get to pay it back. So, Big Mike Patterson arrived 3 days later. Martha heard the motorcycles before she saw them. A thunderous convoy rolling down Highway 89 led by a massive man on a chrome Harley that gleamed like polished silver. 42 bikes. Exactly 42. They pulled into the worksite engines, cutting through the construction like a declaration of arrival. Big Mike dismounted. He was even bigger than Martha remembered. 6'5", easily 300 pounds, with arms that looked like they could bend steel. His beard was gray now, and his face was more weathered, but his eyes were the same. Kind. That was what she remembered most. Kind eyes and a terrifying face. Martha Henderson. He boomed, his voice carrying across the entire site. As I live and breathe. Mike Patterson, you got old. And you got beautiful. He crossed the distance between them in 3 strides and swept her up in a hug that lifted her off the ground. 20 years. 20 years I've been looking for this place. Could never find it again. You could have asked someone. Asked who, hey, you know where that Angel's Diner is, the one on Highway 89? Everyone knew the legend. Nobody knew the location. He set her down gently. But you remembered me. I remember everyone who comes through that door, everyone who needs help. And you help them anyway, even when you've got nothing to give. Martha shrugged. That's what the door's for. Big Mike laughed. It was a sound like rolling thunder. Iron told me what happened in the bank, the lawsuit, all of it. I wanted to come sooner, but I had business to finish first. What business? This business. He whistled sharply. The 42 riders began unloading their bikes, but they weren't carrying personal gear. They were carrying boxes, crates, packages of every size. What is all this? Martha asked. Contributions from every chapter in the Western states. Big Mike grinned. Cash donations, building materials, restaurant equipment, everything you need to rebuild this place better than it was. Mike, I can't. You can and you will. His voice was gentle but firm. Martha, do you know what you mean to us, to all of us? You're not just the angel of 89. You're proof that good people still exist, that kindness still matters, that the world isn't as broken as it sometimes seems. He gestured at the worksite. Look at this. Bikers and truckers working side by side. Rivals from different chapters, sharing tools and trading stories. People who've never met each other, united by one thing, love for you. Martha looked. He was right. Oakland and Denver, Phoenix and Salt Lake, chapters that had feuded for years now, working together like old friends. You did this, Big Mike said. Not the lawsuit, not the media attention. You, the way you treated people, the way you treated us. I just treated you like human beings. Exactly. And for most of us, that was a first. Big Mike's eyes were wet. Now let us return the favor. Let us treat you like the human being you are, the extraordinary, irreplaceable, beautiful human being who saved our lives. Martha couldn't speak. She just nodded. Big Mike pulled her into another hug. Welcome to the family, Angel. You're one of us now. The work progressed faster than anyone expected. Within a week, the new foundation was poured. Within 2 weeks, the framing was complete. Within 3 weeks, the roof was on and the walls were going up. Martha worked alongside them every day. 72 years old, and she was hauling supplies and mixing concrete and doing whatever needed to be done. You should rest, Iron told her for the 100th time. I'll rest when it's finished. Martha, this is my diner, my dream. I'm not going to sit on the sidelines while everyone else does the work. Iron shook his head, but he was smiling. You're the most stubborn woman I've ever met. Bill used to say the same thing. Smart man, your husband. Martha paused, looking at the rising structure around her. He would have loved this, she said quietly. All these people working together, the community we're building. He always dreamed of expanding the diner, making it something bigger, something special. It's going to be special. I know, I just wish he could see it. Iron was quiet for a moment. Maybe he can. Martha looked at him. I'm not a religious man, Iron continued, but I've seen enough to know that death isn't always the end. The people we love, they leave something behind, a piece of themselves that stays with the people who knew them. He gestured at the construction. All of this, it's because of Bill. Every act of kindness you've ever done was inspired by him. Every person you've helped carries a piece of him with them. He's here, Martha, in every nail we drive, in every wall we raise, in every person who came back to say thank you. Martha felt tears sliding down her cheeks. When did you get so wise? When a woman on Highway 89 told a scared kid that he could make something of his life. Iron smiled. I've been trying to live up to those words ever since. The grand opening was scheduled for a Sunday. Exactly 6 weeks after the night, 15 bikers knocked on Martha's door. Henderson's Haven Biker Rest Stop opened for business. The new diner was 3 times the size of the original. A full kitchen, a dining room that could seat 100, a biker lounge with pool tables and a jukebox, a memorial wing dedicated to Bill Henderson featuring photographs of everyone he and Martha had helped over the years. And the sign, the beautiful brand new sign that spelled out Henderson's Haven in lights that would never burn out. Martha stood in front of it as the sun set, watching the letters glow against the darkening sky. Bill, she whispered, we did it. We really did it. A hand touched her shoulder. She turned. Grizzly stood behind her, his massive face soft with emotion. There's someone here to see you. Who? Someone important. Come on. He led her through the crowd of bikers and truckers who'd gathered for the opening, past the food tables and the music and the laughter, to a quiet corner where a young woman waited alone. Martha didn't recognize her at first. Then the woman spoke. Mrs. Henderson, my name is Emily Burke. I'm Grizzly's daughter. Martha's heart stopped. The girl with leukemia, the reason Grizzly and the others had been riding through that blizzard 6 weeks ago. The girl who'd gone into remission on the same night Martha had opened her door. Emily, oh, sweetheart. The young woman was thin but healthy. Her hair was growing back in soft patches. Her eyes were bright and clear and full of life. I wanted to meet you, Emily said. My dad's told me so much about you, about what you did for him and his brothers, about how you saved them when they were trying to save me. I didn't do anything special. My dad says that's what makes you special. Emily smiled. He says you don't even realize how important you are, how many lives you've changed. Your father's a good man. He is now. He wasn't always. Emily's voice dropped. When I was little, he was different, angry, lost. He didn't know how to be a dad or a husband or anything. What changed? He met a woman on Highway 89 back in 2008. His bike broke down and she helped him. Talked to him for hours. Told him about her husband, about the diner, about keeping the light on for people who need it. Martha remembered, a big man with rage in his eyes and despair in his heart. Sitting in booth 7 talking about a daughter he never saw and a wife he was losing. I told him to go home, Martha said. Told him it wasn't too late. He did, that night, walked through the front door and told my mom he was going to change. And he did. He became the father I needed, the husband my mom deserved. Emily's eyes were wet. Because you believed in him when he didn't believe in himself. Martha pulled her into a hug. You were worth believing in, sweetheart. All of you were. The party lasted until midnight. Martha moved through the crowd, accepting hugs and handshakes and stories from people she'd helped over the years. Each face triggered a memory. Each memory triggered an emotion. 42 years, thousands of travelers, hundreds of lives touched. And now they were all here celebrating not just a diner, but a legacy. Iron found her near the memorial wing, standing in front of a photograph of Bill. Hell of a night, he said. Hell of a life. You did good, Martha. Bill would be proud. I hope so. Iron reached into his jacket and pulled out a small box. I've got something for you, from all of us. Martha took the box with trembling hands, opened it. Inside was a leather patch. Not a full Hell's Angels patch, but something unique. A custom design featuring a lighthouse with the words Angel of 89 embroidered beneath it. You're not a member, Iron said, but your family. This patch means every Hell's Angel in America knows your name, knows this place, knows you're under our protection. Martha held the patch against her heart. Thank you for everything. Thank you for opening the door. They stood together in comfortable silence, watching the celebration unfold around them. What happens now? Martha asked. Now you keep doing what you've always done. Keep the light on. Help the people who need it. Be the lighthouse Bill always knew you could be. And you? We'll be around, checking in, making sure you're okay. Iron smiled. Family doesn't disappear just because the crisis is over. Martha looked at the photograph of Bill, at the patch in her hands, at the diner they'd built together, now bigger and brighter than ever. Bill Chon, she whispered, look what we started. And somewhere in the Montana wind, she could almost hear his answer. I always knew this place was special, Martha. I just never knew how special you were. 6 months changed everything. Henderson's Haven Biker Rest Stop had become the most famous diner in America. Magazines wrote about it. News crews filmed it. Travelers from every state made detours just to see the place where a 72-year-old widow had united bikers and truckers against a corrupt bank. But Martha didn't care about the fame. She cared about the people. Every morning she woke at 5. Every morning she brewed the first pot of coffee. Every morning she stood behind the counter and waited for the door to open. And every morning someone new walked in. Mrs. Henderson. Martha looked up from the register. A young man stood in the doorway. Early 20s, thin, wearing clothes that had seen better days. His eyes were red like he'd been crying, or hadn't slept, or both. That's me, Martha said. What can I get you? I don't have any money. Did I ask for money? The young man blinked. No, but sit down, booth 7, I'll bring you some coffee and something to eat. Ma'am, I can't pay. Son, I've been running this diner for 42 years. Not once have I let someone leave hungry because they couldn't pay. Now sit down before I change my mind. The young man sat. Martha poured a cup of coffee, loaded a plate with eggs and bacon and toast, and carried it to the booth. Thank you, the young man whispered. I haven't eaten in 2 days. What's your name? Michael. Michael Torres. Where are you from, Michael? Nowhere, everywhere. He stared at the food like he couldn't believe it was real. I've been on the road for 3 months, running from stuff. What kind of stuff? Michael was quiet for a long moment. My dad, he finally said. He's not a good person. I had to get out. Martha sat down across from him. I've heard that story before. You have more times than I can count. Highway 89 seems to attract people who are running from something. She smiled gently. It also seems to give them a place to run to. Michael looked around the diner, at the photographs on the walls, at the memorial wing visible through the archway, at the Hell's Angels patches displayed in a case near the register. Is it true, he asked, the stories I've heard about this place depends on the stories. That you help people, that you don't turn anyone away, that you're protected by the Hell's Angels. All true. Why, Martha considered the question. Because everyone deserves a second chance. Because kindness doesn't cost anything but attention. Because my husband taught me that being a lighthouse matters more than being a fortress. Michael's eyes filled with tears. I don't know what to do. I don't have anywhere to go. I don't have anyone. Martha reached across the table and took his hand. You have somewhere now, and you have someone. Stay as long as you need. We'll figure out the rest together. Michael broke down crying. Martha held his hand and led him. This was what the lighthouse was for. Iron called that afternoon. How's it going, Angel? Martha smiled at the nickname. It had stuck despite her protests. Another lost soul wandered in this morning. Let me guess. Young, scared, running from something. You know the type. I was the type. Iron's voice was warm. What are you going to do with him? Same thing I always do. Feed him, talk to him, Help him figure out his next step. You're too good for this world, Martha. I'm exactly right for this world. The world just doesn't know it yet. Iron laughed. Listen, I'm calling because I've got news. The Attorney General finished their investigation into Crane. Martha's grip tightened on the phone. And 47 counts of fraud, 23 counts of illegal foreclosure, 12 counts of money laundering. Iron paused for effect. He's going to prison for the rest of his life. Martha let out a breath she hadn't known she was holding. It's over. It's over. Every family he destroyed is getting restitution. Every property he stole is being returned. The whole rotten empire is crumbling. That journalist, Jessica, she did it. She did it with your help. If you hadn't gone public, if you hadn't fought back, none of this would have happened. Martha thought about all the people Crane had hurt, all the lives he'd destroyed, all the homes he'd stolen. It doesn't feel like enough, she said quietly. It never does, but it's something, and something is better than nothing. When did you get so philosophical? When a woman on Highway 89 taught me that kindness changes the world. Iron's voice softened. I'm proud of you, Martha. Bill would be proud too. Thank you, Iron, for everything. Don't thank me, just keep the light on. Always. Ashram, Michael stayed for 3 weeks. Martha gave him a room in the back, put him to work washing dishes and bussing tables, watched him slowly come back to life. He reminded her of Iron, the same haunted eyes, the same desperate need for someone to believe in him. You're getting stronger, she told him one evening. I feel stronger. Michael wiped down a table, his movements more confident than they'd been when he arrived. I don't know how to thank you, Mrs. Henderson. You can start by calling me Martha. Martha, he smiled. That feels weird. You'll get used to it. Michael set down his rag. Can I ask you something? Of course. Why do you do this? Why do you take in strangers and help them for free? You could charge money. You could run this place like a normal business, but you don't. Martha thought about the question. Did you see the memorial wing, the photographs on the wall? Yeah. Every picture is someone Bill and I helped over the years. Truckers who broke down, families who got lost, kids who were running from bad situations. She paused. We never kept track of how many. Never counted the meals or the hours or the money. We just did what needed to be done. But why? Because it matters. Because every person who walks through that door is carrying something heavy. Fear, pain, loneliness, shame. And sometimes all they need is someone to say, sit down, eat, rest, you're safe here. Michael's eyes were wet. No one ever said that to me before, not until I came here. Then I'm glad you found us. Me too. The door opened and a group of bikers walked in. Oakland chapter by the Patches. Big Mike in the lead. Martha Henderson, Big Mike's voice boomed across the diner. How's my favorite angel? Tired, Martha said, but happy. That's what I like to hear. Big Mike noticed Michael. Who's the kid? Michael Torres. He's been helping out around here. Big Mike looked Michael up and down, not hostile, assessing. You treat Martha right. Yes, sir. She saved my life. She does that. Big Mike grinned and, stick around, kid. You might learn something. The first anniversary came faster than anyone expected. 1 year since the blizzard. 1 year since 15 bikers knocked on Martha's door. 1 year since everything changed. The celebration was massive. Bikers came from every chapter in the western states. Truckers rolled in from coast to coast. Journalists and photographers documented everything. Even the governor sent a proclamation declaring January 15th Henderson's Haven Day throughout Montana. Martha stood at the center of it all, overwhelmed. You okay? Iron asked, appearing at her side. I think so. It's a lot. You've earned it. I didn't do anything to earn this. I just opened my door. That's everything, Martha. That one act, that one decision. It changed everything that came after. Iron gestured at the crowd. Look at all these people. Every single one of them has a story. A moment when someone helped them. A reason they believe kindness matters. And you're the thread that connects them all. Martha looked at the faces around her. Danny, the young prospect she'd saved from hypothermia. Now a full patch member respected by his brothers. Grizzly, whose daughter had beaten cancer and was now in college studying medicine. Queen, who'd gone from abuse victim to chapter leader, helping other women find their strength. Henry Wilson, the oldest member who'd finally repaid a debt 53 years in the making. Big Mike, who'd brought 42 bikes to honor 42 years of kindness. And hundreds of others, faces she knew, faces she was just learning. All of them here because of her. "I don't deserve this," she whispered. "You do. You just don't see it yet." A commotion near the entrance drew their attention. Someone was pushing through the crowd, a woman moving with purpose. Martha squinted, trying to see who it was. Then the woman emerged into the clear space near the stage, and Martha's heart stopped. "Mom." The woman was in her 50s, with Martha's eyes and Bill's smile. She was crying, shaking. "Sarah," Martha breathed. Oh, Sarah. Her daughter, her youngest, the one who'd moved to California 20 years ago and rarely came home. "Mom, I'm so sorry." Sarah crossed the distance between them in 3 strides and threw her arms around Martha. "I'm so sorry I wasn't here. I'm so sorry I stayed away." "You're here now. That's what matters. I saw you on the news, saw everything you did, everything these people did for you." Sarah pulled back, her face wet with tears. "I should have been here. I should have helped. You had your own life to live." "That's not an excuse. You're my mother. Dad's gone and you were struggling and I didn't even know." "You know now." Sarah looked around at the celebration. "All these people, all these bikers, they really love you." "I think they do." "Why? I mean, I know why, but..." Sarah shook her head. "How did you do it, Mom? How did you inspire all of this?" Martha thought about the question. "I didn't inspire anything. I just did what your father taught me. Kept the doors open, kept the coffee hot, kept believing that people are worth helping even when the world tells you they're not." "That sounds like Dad." "It is your dad, every bit of it. I'm just carrying on what he started." Sarah hugged her again. "I'm staying, Mom. I'm not leaving again. Whatever you need, I'm here." Martha held her daughter tight. 42 years of keeping the light on. And finally, her family had come home. The ceremony started at sunset. Iron had organized everything. A stage near the memorial wing, chairs for the guests, a microphone for the speeches, and a surprise that Martha didn't know about. "Ladies and gentlemen," Iron announced, stepping up to the microphone, "thank you all for coming. 1 year ago tonight, 15 of us knocked on Martha Henderson's door. We were cold, exhausted, and desperate. Any sensible person would have locked that door and called the cops." Laughter rippled through the crowd. "But Martha Henderson isn't sensible. She's something better. She's compassionate. She opened her door, took us in, saved our lives, and in doing so, she reminded us what it means to be human." He paused. "Over the past year, I've learned something important. Kindness isn't weakness. It isn't naivety. It isn't foolishness. Kindness is strength. The strength to see a stranger and choose to help them. The strength to open your door when fear tells you to lock it. The strength to believe in people when the world tells you not to." Iron turned to look at Martha. Martha Henderson has that strength. She's had it for 42 years. And tonight we're here to honor her, to thank her, and to make sure the world knows what she means to us. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a plaque. "On behalf of every Hells Angels chapter in the Western United States, I present this plaque to Martha Henderson, the Angel of 89, the heart of our family, the lighthouse on Highway 89. Martha walked to the stage on trembling legs. She took the plaque, read the words engraved on it. To Martha Henderson, who opened her door and changed our world, with gratitude that cannot be measured and love that will never fade. Your brothers and sisters of the road." She couldn't speak. The crowd began to cheer, but Iron raised his hand for silence. "We're not done yet." He gestured to someone in the crowd. Big Mike stepped forward, carrying something large and covered with a cloth. "One more thing, Martha, something we've been working on for months." He pulled the cloth away. It was a painting, a massive, beautiful painting of Bill Henderson, standing in front of the original diner, smiling that gentle smile Martha remembered so well. "We found photographs," Big Mike explained. "Talked to people who knew him, commissioned an artist to create this. Martha stared at her husband's face. The eyes were perfect. The smile was perfect. Everything was perfect. Bill, she whispered. We wanted him here tonight, Iron said quietly. Wanted him to see what you've built, what you've become, what his dream turned into. Martha touched the painting with trembling fingers. He would have loved this. All of it. The diner, the people, the family. He's here, Martha. He's always been here. In you. In everything you do. Martha turned to face the crowd. Hundreds of faces, bikers, truckers, strangers who'd become family. I don't have words, she said, her voice cracking. I've spent 42 years talking to people, and now I don't have words. She took a deep breath. But I'll try. The crowd went silent. When Bill and I bought this place, we were 23 years old. We had nothing but a dream and a little bit of courage. Everyone told us we were crazy, that a diner on Highway 89 would never survive, that we were throwing our lives away. She paused. They were wrong, not because the diner made us rich, it didn't, not because it made us famous. It didn't do that either. They were wrong because they didn't understand what we were building. Martha looked at the painting of Bill. We weren't building a business. We were building a lighthouse, a place where people could come when they were lost, when they were scared, when they had nowhere else to go. She turned back to the crowd. Bill used to say that every stranger is just a friend you haven't met yet. I thought he was being naive. Turns out he was being prophetic. Laughter mixed with tears. Every person I've ever helped taught me something. Taught me about courage, about resilience, about the power of second chances. And every one of them left something behind, a piece of their story, a piece of their heart. She touched the Angel of 89 patch on her jacket. You call me the Angel of 89, but the truth is you're the angels, every single one of you. You came when I needed you. You fought for me when I couldn't fight for myself. You showed me that the kindness I spent 42 years giving away was never really gone. It was just waiting for the right moment to come back. She wiped her eyes. Bill always believed that kindness would change the world. He didn't live to see it happen. But tonight, standing here looking at all of you, I know he was right. Her voice strengthened. So here's my promise. As long as I'm breathing, this lighthouse will stay lit. The doors will stay open. The coffee will stay hot. And anyone who needs help will find it. That's what Henderson's Haven is for. That's what it's always been for. She raised the plaque. Thank you, all of you, for reminding me why I do this. For showing me that kindness isn't just a choice. It's a legacy, and it's a legacy I'm proud to carry. The crowd erupted. Cheers, applause, engines revving in celebration. Iron pulled Martha into a hug. Hell of a speech, he said. I meant every word. I know you did. That's what made it hell of a speech. The party lasted until dawn. Martha spent hours talking to people, hearing their stories, adding their faces to the tapestry of memories she carried in her heart. At some point, she found herself alone in the memorial wing. Just her and Bill's painting. We did it, sweetheart, she whispered. Everything you dreamed of, everything you believed in, it's real now. She touched his painted face. I miss you every day, every single day, but I know you're still here, in this place, in these people, in me. Footsteps behind her. She turned. Michael Torres stood in the doorway, the young man she'd taken in 3 weeks ago. He looked different now, stronger, more confident. Mrs. Henderson, I mean Martha. Yes. I wanted to tell you something. I've been thinking a lot these past few weeks about what you said, about second chances, about lighthouses. He stepped forward. I've decided what I want to do with my life. What's that? I want to do what you do, help people, not just here, everywhere. I want to find the lost ones, the scared ones, the ones who don't think they deserve help, and I want to show them they're wrong. Martha's heart swelled. That's a big dream. It's your dream. I'm just borrowing it. You're not borrowing anything, you're carrying it forward. That's what dreams are for. Michael smiled. Thank you, Martha, for everything. Thank you, Michael, for letting me help. She pulled him into a hug. Another lost soul found, another light kindled in the darkness, another thread in the tapestry of kindness that Bill Henderson had started 42 years ago. Bah. 1 year later, Michael Torres opened his own shelter in Arizona. He called it Henderson's Light. 2 years after that, Danny Reeves started a program to help at-risk youth through the Hells Angels Network. Named it the Angel Foundation. Queen established a refuge for abuse survivors staffed entirely by women who'd escaped their own dark situations. Grizzly's daughter, Emily, became a doctor specializing in treating patients who couldn't afford care. And Iron wrote a book about the Angel of '89, about the night that changed everything, about the power of one open door. It became a bestseller. The money went to Henderson's Haven. All of it. Martha Henderson lived to see her 80th birthday. The celebration drew 500 people, bikers from every state, truckers from 3 countries. Politicians, journalists, celebrities all come to honor the woman who'd reminded the world what kindness looked like. But Martha wasn't interested in the fanfare. She was interested in the young woman who walked through the door at 7 in the morning before the party started. Thin, scared, running from something. "Ma'am," the young woman said, her voice trembling, "I don't have any money, but I heard this was a place where people help." Martha smiled. "You heard right. Sit down. Booth 7. I'll bring you some coffee and something to eat." "Thank you. I don't know how to." "Don't thank me yet. We haven't even started." The young woman sat. Martha poured a cup of coffee, loaded a plate with eggs and bacon and toast, and carried it to the booth. Just like she'd done 10,000 times before. Just like she'd do 10,000 times more. Because that's what lighthouses do. They keep the light on. Martha passed away peacefully in her sleep at 83 years old. The funeral procession stretched for 15 miles. Over 2,000 motorcycles, 800 trucks, countless cars carrying the people who'd never met her but felt like they knew her. Iron gave the eulogy. "Martha Henderson wasn't famous when I met her," he said. "She was just a woman running a diner on a lonely highway, but she was the most important person I ever knew." He paused. "She taught me that kindness isn't a transaction. It's a gift. She taught me that strangers are just family you haven't met yet. She taught me that the smallest act of compassion can change the entire course of a life." He looked at the crowd. "She saved me. She saved all of us. Not with money or power or influence. With something simpler. Something rarer. She saved us with love." His voice cracked. Martha used to say that Henderson's Haven was a lighthouse, a place to guide lost travelers home. But the truth is, she was the lighthouse. Her heart was the beacon. Her kindness was the flame. He straightened. "And now that flame belongs to all of us. Every person she helped, every life she touched, every soul she guided home. We carry her light now, and as long as we keep it burning, Martha Henderson will never truly be gone." He raised his fist. "To the Angel of '89. 2,000 voices answered. To the Angel. The engines roared, the trucks honked, and somewhere Martha Henderson smiled. Henderson's Haven still stands on Highway 89. The doors are starting to open. The coffee is still hot, and the sign above the entrance still reads the same words Bill Henderson painted 42 years ago. "Welcome, traveler. You're safe here." Every night when the sun sets behind the Montana mountains, a light comes on above the door. A beacon visible for miles in every direction. And every night someone walks through that door, lost, scared, desperate, and every night someone is there to greet them. "Sit down, booth 7. I'll bring you some coffee and something to eat." Because that's what lighthouses do. That's what family does. That's what love does. It keeps the light on, always. Sometimes the angels don't wear wings. They wear leather jackets and ride Harleys. They drive 18-wheelers across lonely highways. They run diners on mountain roads that most people never see. And sometimes one open door can change the world. Keep your light on. Someone always needs it.